Pace and NRDC, Craig Cashman, there he is, Watershed Agricultural Council, who we've done great work with. But I most want to thank our President Gail Brewer because, you know, so many issues in New York City, as you know, anyone could imagine, and it's often the squeaky wheel gets the attention. But Gail has always recognized that, you know, while water in New York City, because we're fortunate, isn't always on the front page, is that if you take your eye off the ball, you know, things can go south very quickly. And Gail also, I think more than maybe anybody, understands that New York City and the upstate watershed communities are inextricably linked, and we need to keep that partnership going. So thank you all. So I think this morning it might be just helpful to go through why New York City you know, developed this long-term partnership with the Catskill and Hudson Valley communities. You know, we have a map up here of the New York City watershed. And as you can see, New York City residents get their water from 19 reservoirs and 3 controlled lakes that bring water through tunnels and aqueducts into the city. The city residents use about 1 billion gallons a day of drinking water, and about another 100 million gallons of water is provided to more than 70 communities in upstate along the path of the aqueducts and tunnels. And the system really, it's an engineering marvel. The Delaware Aqueduct is the longest continuous tunnel in the world. It really is a phenomenal engineering achievement even today. For nearly 2 centuries, all of our drinking water was delivered without filtration. Recently, we had to build filtration for the smaller Croton watershed, which we generally take 10% of our water from. But if we did have to filter the larger Catskill and Delaware system, you know, almost 1 billion gallons a day of drinking water, we in New York City would have to do a lot of, you think this is an engineering marvel, to filter that water would be an incredibly difficult task, very expensive. Just as a little bit of background, the Croton water filtration plant, which we built in the Bronx, sits on a 90-acre site, 90 acres of concrete and steel, a lot of power to treat that water. You know, it's something we certainly, as just environmentalists, not even looking at the cost, want to avoid, and we said we had to come up with a better way, and I think you're going to be hearing a little bit about more today how that happened. But we have now, for more than 20 years, have what's called a filtration avoidance determination, and that was worked out, you heard a little bit earlier, New York State Department of Health, with EPA and with our local partners to work out those agreements over the years. Watershed farmers were the first group, I guess, to band together to come to the table with ideas. And I think everyone recognized that the best way to protect those watersheds is to work with the local community to make sure that the impacts from their development and from their agriculture doesn't impact those reservoirs. Things like fertilizer, manure, and other materials that were sources of nitrogen and phosphorus into streams that fed the watershed were some of the original areas that we looked at. So in 1993, the Watershed Agricultural Council was formed to develop really science-based work for New York City and the local communities to work towards. And over the past 26 years, DEP has contributed nearly $400 million to those efforts in watershed farms. The program, just by the way, is 100% voluntary. No farmers are required to participate, but 90% of them have, to one degree or another, signed up for the program, and it's widely supported throughout the upstate communities. The city, we funded the development of 440 whole farm plans that take a holistic look at the operation of each farm and prescribe changes to watershed efficiency. And we've actually implemented more than 7,800 best management practices. These covered things like barnyard storage, manure storage areas, exclusion fencing along streams and creeks. In addition, WAC has leveraged DEP funding to purchase easements on about 30,000 acres of farm and forest lands, ensuring that those lands remain part of the working landscape in New York State. From a DEP perspective, the work funnels into a common theme. We know that open spaces, including well-managed farms and forests, are compatible with the protection of water quality in our New York City reservoir systems. So DEP's current contract with WAC includes the funding of full-time staff positions for its economic viability program, along with initiatives to support businesses and micro grants to implement ideas that come out of those plans. These new initiatives are, by the way, just getting off the ground as they do. We look forward to continue working with everyone, as we are going to do today, to brainstorm some new ideas about ways to get food from our watershed into the city. So I look forward to a great conversation, and thank you all again.